Hello and welcome to Philosophy 101, an introduction to philosophy. My name is Stephen Everett and I will be your instructor for this course. This is a video for everyone in the course. For those who may be familiar with this D2L interface that we have on the screen in front of us, have taken other online classes, as well as for those who have never taken an online class and never interacted with this interface. This is a video for everyone in the class. To get started, the first thing we can notice over here on the right hand side of the screen is the course calendar. The calendar can be helpful. It shows when you gain and lose access to various things throughout the semester, but it doesn't really contain all the information that you might want or that you actually need to successfully navigate the course. What you'll want to do is get this document right here. When you click on this link, this course schedule, it brings up a document that looks like this one. This is a course schedule. It's the entire course laid out from left to right. You start over here and you just read from left to right. It has every single week for the entire semester. It has the week, the date, the topic, as well as the prompt for the weekly discussion, which we'll talk more about that in this video. It also has the days and times that this week begins. That's the unlock time. That's when you gain access to everything. And then it has the lock time. This is when you lose access to being able to make changes to, say, the discussion that's associated with the week one, as well as to do anything with the week one, anything else that's normally available during a week, you lose access. You can always go back and reread past discussions, but you can't make any changes to them once this day and time arrives. It also gives you the idea of what's inside this week, what you'll be reading and watching. And notice there's these things marked with SE. Those are my initials. That is lecture material. You always want to find that each week. Watch the video, look through the handouts. Some weeks there's not a lecture video, but there's a handout. There may be other supporting videos. But pretty much most weeks have a lecture video, but they definitely all have a lecture handout, even if they don't have a lecture video. And then any other supporting things that are associated with the lecture material. And then there's other things inside the weekly module that you'll want to read through and watch. The next thing is assignments. We'll talk more about what's due this week a little later in this video, but you can see everything when it is due as it goes through each week. Now, there's something to notice in this class. This is a 10-week summer class. Normally, this class is taught on a 15-week expanse. Well, that means that 15 weeks worth of material, even though you're taking a 10-week course, you're paying for the full 15 weeks. And so you need to have access to that material, need to work through those assignments just like anybody else would. It would be the same if this was a 5-week summer semester. It's just we have to squeeze more material in a shorter span of time, but we still have to cover the same amount of material. Otherwise, you wouldn't be getting all the same class, all the same information as people who choose to take it in a 15-week slot. So what that means, why is that relevant to us? Well, it means these first 5 weeks of the semester, the first half of the semester, you'll just have one discussion each week, and you'll have one quiz each week, and you'll have one topic inside of lecture material each week. The first 5 weeks is just singular, one discussion, one quiz, and one set of lecture material for the first 5 weeks. But when we get to week 6, things change. And it's important to know this up front, that the material doubles up, that there are 2 lecture material topics, and that results in 2 discussions and 2 quizzes each week. And it's possible to arrange things in a different way, but this is just what I have found throughout time. You take the first 5 weeks of the class, you become familiar with how philosophy works. Your mind gets kind of familiar with that. thinking philosophically, kind of how argumentation works for philosophy people, and how the ideas are handled. And so you get to ease into it for the first 5 weeks, and then the last 5 weeks, you're able to handle everybody's able to do this doubling up of material. It's doable. I've done it many times in the past, so don't worry about it. It's totally manageable. It's just you have to put forth more time in the last 5 weeks than in the first 5 weeks of the semester. It's just the way the class is set up. And we have to cover the amount of material regardless. So this is just the way things are set up. But inside this course schedule, what you'll see is it gives you the times of when everything's due. It's like you have a discussion assignment, and you're doing what's known as an initial discussion post, which we'll talk about that later in the video. Then you're doing 2 peer replies during the first set of 5 weeks. But each discussion, you do an initial post, you do 2 peer replies, and we'll talk about how that's done later in the video. And you do a quiz, and it gives you the times, the days, the times, all that is due. As well as all of this information that you're looking for each week. You have the entire class laid out from left to right. It also gives you when extra credit opportunities, when you'll want to have them done by if you want the extra credit, as well as it lets you know when summer break is. It lets you know when the midterm exam is. These few pages also let you know when the final exam is. And so you can use this to kind of schedule your time, plan around your job, any other classes you might be taking. So that's the course schedule. If you print out or save to your computer or whatever, only one document thing for the whole semester, these 4 pages are what you want. And it's so much easier to find things, know that you have the right things in your hands or that you're doing the right things with this course schedule. So I'd encourage everyone to download, print out a copy of this, or at least save it to the device you use. So that's the course schedule, and you can use it in lieu of this calendar in D2L. Sometimes the D2L calendar, historically, it doesn't necessarily show everything that's in play at a given time. They work on it. They update the system periodically. Sometimes links break as far as the calendar goes. So it's better to always rely on the course schedule, and I'll show you how to find things in another few ways throughout the semester. So that's the calendar. You can use it as a helpful reference, but I wouldn't rely on it. I would rely on the course schedule. The updates, this is just a blocked off section updates window. Inside this, various links appear throughout the semester. It'll say that you have some number of unread discussion posts, or that you have a quiz or 2 quizzes to do. That's fine. It's helpful. It lets you know that you do have things to do and to complete by a certain day and time. But they show up in the form of links that you could click on. And what I would encourage people to do is not try to go do these things by clicking on the links. The reason for that is sometimes D2L does not distinguish between your Philosophy 101 class and if you were taking some other, like English 101, for example. And what can happen is you say, oh, I have a quiz to do, and it's for my philosophy class. So you click on the link, and it takes you away from this class into another class you have, and you don't notice it. And you open up a quiz, and then you realize, whoa, this is for an entirely different class. You don't want that. It's just part of it. The D2L system works this way. A lot of these content management things do this sometimes. So what you want to do is just use what the notifications that appear in the updates window, use them as a helpful reminder. Oh, I have things I need to go do. I have a quiz to do, or I have discussions to do. And then go find those things through using, say, the assignments tab or the content tab, which we'll talk through in this video. So use the updates window as a kind of helpful reminder of, oh yeah, I have these things to go do. But then when you get ready to go do them, go through assignments or content. The final thing is the news feed. On this landing page where you always, every time you come into the class, you're going to land on this page. It's going to look similar to this. And there's always this news feed. Well, what I would encourage everyone to do is always look at this news feed and read through whatever's posted here that you haven't yet read. And just keep reading the post until you run into one you know you've read before. And that because the most recent post just stacks on top of whatever was already here. Like it pushes this post down and another one, sort of like social media feeds do. And so you always want to scroll down and just keep going until you reach to the end of post and make sure that you've read all of these news posts, because they're always going to contain material that's relevant for everybody in the class. So let's go through this first news post. We have, okay, it's a welcome message. We have my name, an introduction to me. You have how to get started in the class. To get started, you watch this course information video, which everybody watching this video, you're doing that, and that's exactly what you need to be doing. Everything starts with the video you're currently watching. And then the next thing is you carefully read through the syllabus and the course schedule. Well, we've just seen some of what the course schedule looks like. You'll want to, like I say, download, get you a copy, and look through it carefully. And understand. Let me know if there's any questions about how it's working. Then there's the syllabus. We'll look at this near the end of this video. Now, you may not be as familiar with the syllabus course schedule labeling. You may be more familiar with the instructional package and course information sheet if you've taken other online classes at the college. The reality is that the core information that you need, like the policies, when things are due, all of that information that you need is contained in the syllabus and the course schedule. It's also in the instructional package and the course information sheet. The same core material is there. The only difference is there's a little more description in these two things. The reason, and you can use this set of documents, complete the entire course, totally fine. Or you can use this set of documents, complete the course entirely fine. Why include both? Well, because historically people have taken this class for many years, that they prefer this sort of format. So I leave it in here for everybody to use. It's just a preference of the majority of students that have taken this class throughout the years. But you can use these two. There's nothing wrong with it. What I encourage you to do is look through this set of documents, look through this set today, this week. Just pick whichever you like the most and run with it. The information that you need to succeed in the class and know what to do is the same in all of them. You just have a little more information in these two, in this set of documents, than you do this set. So just pick one set and use it throughout the semester. The next thing is this OER, this textbook. We will use some of this throughout the semester. And we lean especially heavily on the lecture notes and lecture videos, but we do use some of this, or either some of this will be referred to as voluntary pages you can read. Either way, you don't have to buy anything like a textbook for this class. Everything you need is in the class, and you have everything you need. You do not have to buy a textbook for the class. You can click on this link and you can download a whole copy of this book, and you can definitely get the lecture notes and all that in the class. Now, so you don't need to buy a textbook for this course. Everything you need is inside D2L. It's inside this system. Now, how to email me. This is important. This is a 100% online class, meaning that all of our contact occurs through this D2L interface. But it also means that if you need to reach out to me and ask questions, everything begins with email. Like if you have any questions, like after watching this video or throughout the upcoming weeks, just send me an email. Get out of this D2L system and go to your HTTC email or some external email, Gmail, Outlook, doesn't matter, whatever you use, and then type in my address, this address and no other, and just send me your email. Typically within 12 hours, when I see email, I reply to it. But give me up to 48 hours just in case, especially during the first week or so, because there's always a lot going on during the first few weeks, and it takes me a little while to get back to everybody with their email. But if it's been over 48 hours and you haven't received an email from me, check the address you sent it to. Make sure it's this one. If it's not, correct it and resend your email. But if you did send it to me and I haven't replied, then definitely resend it. Say, hey, I sent you this email. I don't know if you received it. Here it is again. Because sometimes things get lost in the internet through the ether of the internet. It happens. But I do need to be able to communicate. We all do throughout the semester. And so how you email me is you get out of this D2L system and you go into your HTTC email or Gmail, Outlook, whatever you use, and just send me an email. I'll reply to it within 12 to 48 hours. Attendance verification. This is school's policy, not necessarily mine, but we're at the school, so we have to follow the policies. And the first thing to do is send me an email as soon as possible. Just talking about email. So just send me a quick email today after you finish this video, but definitely before the end of this week or by the last moment of the last day of this week. Hey, I'm in your Intro to Philosophy class. I can use that to verify your attendance to the registrar. After you've done this once this week, you never have to do it again. After this week, your attendance is tracked by completion of assignments. As you complete the discussions, the quizzes, I update, if you're completing it, you're attending. If you're completing assignments. That also means if you're not completing assignments, you're marked as absent. That's the way it works in this class. So, but just this week, sometime this week, you just need to send me an email. Hey, I'm in your Intro to Philosophy class. Let me know if you have any questions when you do that. If there are any, I'll answer them. But I'll reply to these emails so you know that we have a reliable means of communicating back and forth throughout the semester whenever we need to. Also, you'll complete this week's discussion assignment, which we'll talk more about later in this video, as well as identity verification. Well, what is that? Well, identity verification is you follow this link. What you do is you just take a picture of yourself with your photo ID. It can be school ID. It can be another kind of photo ID, but it just needs to be a picture of you with your ID. And then you click on this link. Once you have that picture file, you click on this link and it'll walk you through the process of uploading it. This is something that the school requires in all online classes. It's their requirement. It's not mine, but you do need to do it in order to stay in the class. And then this never goes anywhere. It stays entirely inside the class. So that being said, so what is it that you're doing this week? What is the assignments this week? Is you send me an email as soon as you can. You upload essentially a selfie with a photo ID, and you complete this week's discussion assignment. Those are the three things that all fall under this attendance verification. Those are the three things that need to be completed this week, by the end of this week, by midnight the 24th. There's no quiz this week, but there will be quizzes as we go further in the semester. This week, it's just a discussion, sending me an email, and uploading your picture with your ID. That's all that's due this week. So let's go a little further into the class. You won't have all these same tabs at the top, but you will have tools. And under tools, you have attendance and grades. These are the two things that you'll use the most under tools throughout the semester. How do grades work? Well, when you complete a quiz or an exam, you can instantly see what your grade is. After you do it, you can go to grades, you can see what your score is. It'll show you what your score is when you get through immediately as soon as you turn in the quiz or the exam. But you can also check in grades and make sure it's there too. That's quizzes and exams. But what about discussions? Well, discussions, I read everything that's posted in discussion, like initial post, peer replies. I read all of it. That takes a little time after the week is over. So each discussion ends when a week ends in the class. And our weeks run from one Saturday at midnight to the next Saturday at midnight. That's the way it's set up in this class. And so your grades for discussions are always going to lag behind a few days. So when you finish your discussion, say, for this first week, which will be the 24th, it'll be around Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, the following week. Give me about 3 days to read through all the discussions and update your grades. And then once there's been about 3 days after 1 week ends, you should be able to go in. You can see your discussion grades. And when I update discussions grades is when I update attendance. So your attendance will be updated the same time your discussion grade appears. Your attendance, whether you were present or absent, that'll show up too very shortly after. Within the same day, within a few minutes after your discussion grade, your attendance will show up. So with quiz, to repeat that, quizzes and exams, you can see your grade instantly. Discussion grades are always a few days behind, once the week ends. So if you complete a discussion and you're done with it on a Saturday, then by Monday, Tuesday, the following week is when you'll be able to see your grade on it. And that's just because it takes time to read the discussions carefully. So attendance and grades. There's other things here, but the attendance and grades are what we're using the most of. Now, under communications, you don't want to email me this way. This is D2L email. We've already talked about you. Get out of D2L and email me from your HTTC or some external email account, not through this. But now under communications is news, which this can be helpful sometimes. You can scroll down to the bottom of the news feed and there'll be a thing where you can show more, and you can keep doing that until you reveal all the news posts. Or if you just want to go and be able to see all news posts that have been made, say it's the middle of the semester, and you're like, hey, there was something in one of those previous news posts, a link to something that I want to get to now. Well, if you want to do that, it's later in the semester. The easiest way is just go on communications, news, and then you'll be able to find all the previous news posts, all the current and previous ones. Now, into the two larger tabs, assignments. Well, what's under here? Well, the main three tabs you're using is discussion, Dropbox, quizzes. These are the three we use. There's other things, but we're not using them. So discussion, Dropbox, quizzes. So let's just pick one. Pick Dropbox. What is under Dropbox? Well, under it, all I did is I went assignments, Dropbox, and clicked it. If you look under it, you have, this is the folder or the location that you update your selfie with your photo ID. You can do it this way. You can go through Dropbox, go right here and upload it that way rather than just following the link in the news post. You can get to it this way. And there's also a writing assignment in the class, the argumentative essay. When it comes time to do this later in the semester, like near the end, this is how you can get here to do it. You'll do your essay, you have it saved in a Word document or PDF file on your computer. Then ahead of this date, you just go here and you can upload it. And it'll walk you through the process just like it will with uploading that picture. If you have any questions when it comes time for the essay, you can always send me an email. But that's all that's under Dropbox, like assignments, Dropbox. All that's here is just where you can turn in your photo with your ID and where you can turn in your argumentative essay when it's time to do so. That's all that's under Dropbox. The next thing is quizzes. So let's see what that is. So we go quizzes. Under here is all the quizzes that you will complete, as well as a midterm exam, final exam. There's links to everything right here under this. All I did was go assignments and quizzes. That's it, and clicked on it. And you can, when these dates, what will happen is right now they're future quizzes because I'm recording this video before the class officially opens. Once the class opens and this date occurs, or when we get to this date in the class during week 2, that this quiz will go into a slot up here that says current quizzes. And so you'll always be able to know what quizzes to do at any given time. You can always just go assignments, quizzes, and then just look. There'll be a box that'll have current quizzes, and you'll know those are the quizzes you need to do for that week. It also lets you know what week we're in. But this is the same as the lock and unlock times that appear inside the course schedule. And so there's the midterm will become available on a certain day and time. The final will become available, things like that. And notice as during the first few weeks of the class, we just have singular quizzes like week 2, 3, 4, 5. But then when we get to week 6, like I said, things double up. And you have quiz A, quiz B. Like this will be for the first topic material during a week. This will be for the second topic material for the same week. And so things double up as we get into that second half of the class. But sometimes there may just be one quiz some weeks after that, but normally there'll be two per week after we get into things and get past the fifth week of the class. So that's the quizzes. The next thing is discussions. All the forums that you could post something to throughout the semester can be found here, like assignments, discussions. And there's more than just the weekly discussions, like there's a course information forum, which we'll see this in a little while in the video. But there's any questions, this would be a case, this is a special use case. That normally, for any questions you have about the class, how to find something, just send me an email, I'll answer it. If we need to schedule time for a phone conversation, we can do that. And we'll work through whatever it is with email and the phone. But in terms of this is a special use that, say, if it's 3 a.m, you're working on your assignments and you don't remember how to find something, you could, in principle, post a question of, well, how do I find whatever it is you're looking for here? And if somebody else happens to be in the class at that time at 3 a.m, they happen to see your question, they happen to know the answer, and they happen to be kind and provide and take the time to provide you with the answer, you may get a little quicker feedback in those special use cases. But the overwhelming majority of the time, the quickest feedback is just to send me an email, ask your question, and I'll answer it. And you definitely don't want to post anything associated with your grades or anything like this here, because anything you post here can be read and replied to and seen by everybody else in the class. So that's a real special use case, but it's there. Also, there's this place you can tell everybody a little bit about yourself. You don't have to. It's voluntary, but if you want to, you can. The next things that are required, though, are the weekly discussions. So how do these things work? Well, each week there is a discussion prompt right here and a discussion question. In this case, this first week, it's got this question: which of the various branches of philosophy do you find most interesting? Well, and why? Now, why is extremely important in philosophy, is your reasoning for whatever your answer happens to be. Each week's discussion makes sense once you've watched the lecture material associated with the week. You need to watch the lecture material, read through the handout before attempting these discussions. Now, there's two aspects to discussions. The first is when you read that lecture material, you're ready, you look at the discussion, you're like, okay, yeah, I know how to answer that now. Well, then what you do is you click on the link and start a new thread or create a post. Sometimes the name of the button that appears changes, but the idea is the same. You click this, it'll prompt you to start a new thread, something like that. You click on the button and a text box appears. You type in your answer and your reasons in support of that answer. Once you do that, you post it. When you do that, you gain access to be able to see what everybody else has posted. You won't be able to see what other people post until you make your initial post. Given that fact, you want to go ahead and do that initial post as quick as you can each week, around Wednesdays at 7 p.m. to Thursdays. Sometime in that time window from Wednesdays to Thursdays is when you want to get that initial post on the board to be able to see what everybody else has posted. And that goes into the second part of weekly discussions. Once you've made an initial post, well, you provided your answer to the question or questions. Sometimes there's more than one. And your reasons in support of it, your answers. Then you go back and you read what other people's initial posts are. And then you can click on their post. And each week you need to do replies to at least 2 people per discussion. Now that means if you have 2 discussions to do, that means you'll have 4 peer replies. You'll have 2 initial posts and 4 peer replies. That's what happens after the 5th week of the class. But just during the first weeks of the class, the first 5 weeks, you just have 1 discussion to manage. And so once you've looked at the lecture material, you're ready to answer the question, you click on this, the text box appears, you put your answer, your reasons, you post it. You can go back in, see what other people have posted. If you're the very first person to post, there's not going to be any other people. But if you check back a day or so later, you'll start to see the posts that other people are making. You read through those posts and just pick two, and then when you click on their post, there'll be a reply button that appears near the bottom of it. You click on that, another text box appears, and what do you do in a peer reply? Well, you do more than just say, I agree or I disagree. You won't receive credit for that as far as a peer reply goes. It's fine to tell people if you agree. It's fine if you disagree. You will at times disagree with what some people say. This is a philosophy class. We don't always agree about everything. That's fine. That's just the way it's built. But the idea is you provide, when you reply to a peer, give them feedback you yourself would like to receive. Tell the person what you think worked about their post if you agree with what they said. Is there a reason? Is it an example they used? Is it the way that they're thinking about it that you agree with? Let them know. If you happen to disagree, let them know. What is it? Was it an example they used that you don't think worked? Do you think that one of the reasons isn't true? It may be mistaken. Do you have a counterexample to what they said? Things like that. And all of these terms that I'm using are talked about in the lecture material for this week. And that's why you want to look through the lecture material before doing each week, the discussions each week. But either way, the summary is you do an initial post. That's your answer to the question, and then your reasons in support of that answer. You do that. You try to get that done by Wednesdays, Thursdays each week. Then after that, you're able to access and read what everybody else has posted, and you post peer replies to at least 2 people. You do that for each discussion. So if you just have one discussion for each of the first 5 weeks, you just need an initial post and 2 peer replies. But as these things double up after the midpoint of the semester, you'll end up having to reply to 2 people in each discussion after that. But that'll make sense as we get to it. And I'm always here to clarify if you have questions. And you can scroll through here and already see every discussion that we're going to have throughout the semester. You can go ahead and get an idea of what the discussions are going to be and what's going to be the topic for that week. But that's what's going on under the assignments tab. Discussions, quizzes, and Dropbox. Those are the 3 main things, and we've gone through them. The next thing is the large tab, which is content. Yep, if this is the first time you clicked on content, you're going to see the overview here. You can read through it. It's an introductory class in philosophy to the discipline, the field, the practice of philosophy, and you'll definitely get an introduction to it, no doubt about that. And I hope you enjoy it. But you can read through the overview yourself. But the main thing is we need to know where this lecture material is and where what's known as the weekly modules are. So let's go back to Course Home and say that I want to find the things for this week that I need to be reading and watching in order to do my assignment, my discussion assignment. So you just click content, and then what you do is you just scroll down while looking to the left side of the screen over here with this navigation bar. And there's 3 main folders or modules. There's the getting information, getting started, course information. There's the course contents. There's extra credit. Well, your lecture material is under here, under course contents. Everything for every week. But before we see that, let's look at these other 2 folders and see what's in them, just to get a feel for how this stuff works. So the first thing you can do is just check out extra credit. Just click on it. We clicked extra credits. You see it change color. It's letting you know, hey, this is where you are. And then at the top, you have extra credit. It gives you the 2 dates that you need to have these done by if you want to receive the extra credit. This is not an insignificant amount of extra credit. If you do both of them successfully, it increases by half a letter grade. So if you have a 75, after you've done all the other assignments throughout the semester, you do both of these extra credits successfully, you end up with an 80. If you have an 85 and you do both successfully, you end up with a 90. So it can pick your grade up for the whole course by half a letter grade. It's not an insignificant amount of points. And so how does each of them work? Well, you can do the first one after anytime up to the date that it's due, but these are available right now. You can do these 2 extra credits any point throughout the semester up until the day that they're due. And you can do this one after the very first week, actually. Extra credit 1, extra credit 2, I would say, wait till after the first week to do it. But anytime after the first week, you can do it. So these are available throughout the whole semester up until the date that they say that they lock down. When they're due after those dates, you'll no longer have those opportunities available. Extra credit's voluntary. You don't have to do it, but it's a half a letter grade if you do both successfully. And if you just do one successfully, well, it's half of a letter grade. So it'd raise you by a quarter letter grade, 2.5 final grade points. So the next thing, that's extra credit, getting started course information. Let's check it out. Notice instantly that tabs appeared underneath this one when I clicked on it. That's important to see how this stuff works, because this is how you navigate the class, is that we can close these tabs by just clicking table of contents, and see they'll always bring you back to the top 3. You don't really have to care what's happening over here at this point. You just can see that there's 3. Well, if you click this, it drops into 3 sub-tabs. Well, this is essentially just one big folder with little subfolders in it. That's the way to think about this organization scheme inside this D2L interface, is it's just folders within folders. There's things in the folders, and you can have, some of those things can be other folders. So that's how these content management software works. That's what D2L is. But you have these 3 sub-tabs. And so what is it? First of all, you have getting started course information. We clicked on it. We can see that it's darker than the background, and it's right there in the middle top of the screen. So we know that, yes, indeed, we've opened it. This is where we are. The next thing is course information. Well, we can just look right here. There's course information. If this is working the way it seems to be, underneath this, if I scroll down, I should find D2L how-tos and student services. Well, let's see. Is that true? Yes, indeed. There's D2L how-tos. And then under that is student services. Right here. So that's pretty straightforward how that works. But let's look inside some of these. Well, what's inside course information? Well, a link to this video, a link to the syllabus, a link to the course schedule. There's another link to the textbook for the course. There's also a thing called Net Etiquette. This link, I would encourage everybody, especially if this is your first time inside this D2L taking an online class, you definitely want to go to this webpage and read through this information. It lets you know how to post to, say, a discussion or send email or whatever in an academic professional environment. I mean, there's some things to it that you may not think about. For example, you always write in complete sentences. You don't use a lot of abbreviations like we may use in text messages. You want to always have capital letter in the front, punctuation at the end of your sentences. You want to not use all capital letters. You want to do, capital with lowercase letters. Things like that. You don't want to pick like a fluorescent yellow color to the actual letters, because that's difficult for people to see. And in a class like this one, or in any academic professional environment, it's not what this looks like that matters as much as the content, what you're saying. And you don't want to pick a font or a color of the text, the actual letters, the character letters. You don't want to pick something that's going to distract people from what you're saying. So Net Etiquette is really useful, especially in the world we live in today, where we do a whole lot of online communication. This can help you become a more effective communicator in the online environment. And definitely in an academic professional setting. The advice is good. Distance learning policies. Everybody taking this class, while you're taking it, these policies apply to you. Online distance learning. Any questions? We've already seen where that is over in discussions. We've said this is special use case. It's only about questions related to how to find stuff or things in this inside this course information. Really just send me your questions through email. That's the easiest way. Also under this, which it actually looks like a folder with the icon, that this is the instructional package course information sheet, links to them. In lieu of, if you prefer these formats rather than the syllabus course schedule, whichever you pick and use throughout the semester, there's links to them. The next thing is D2L how-tos. This is a virtual tour, 30, 40-minute video, and it talks through how this interface itself works regardless of what class it is. We're essentially doing a D2L virtual tour right now in this video, except it's for this particular class. But if you want to see how it all works on a larger scale, if you're taking multiple online classes or you're thinking about doing that in the future, it's worth taking that virtual tour and becoming familiar with just how this lays itself out and then where things normally are and how to find things. There's also a tip sheet that's with that. The last thing, student services. This is just the beginning. The school offers well over 100 other services. These are just the ones that the school administration likes to always be included in classes. So you have Tech Central with admissions, technology problems. Then you have services for distance learning students that you can avail yourself to while you're an online student. You can do Success and Tutoring Center. There's library information, testing center. We don't use this in this class, but you may be using it in other classes. There's a link to it. Accessibility disability services. If this applies in your case, you get in touch with these people, then they get in touch with me. We go from there. There's Title IX services, there's counseling services, and many more. So that's what's in the Getting Started course information sort of modular folder. So let's close the folders again. Now, where's my lecture material? Where's the stuff I need to be reading and watching for each week? It's under course contents. Yeah, you see it takes D2L a second or two to orientate itself, figure out where it is. And then you go course contents and say that we want to do, well, first of all, you can just notice, see how it stretched it out? Where there's all 10 weeks of the class over here on the left side, as well as the modular folder with the midterm exam link in it, as well as the final exam. There'll be one for it too. What you can do is look through all this after this video, but as far as what you need this week, week 1, let's just click on it and see. That during week 1, you have the same thing that's appeared in the course schedule. You have week 1, you have the topic, you have the dates. The next thing you have at the top of it is it's giving you a reminder about attendance and identity verification, getting that done by the end of this week. It's also letting you know that free textbook that you have available to you, you could read those pages. Those are relevant to what's being talked about in this module, but they're voluntary. You don't have to. You're not going to have any quiz or exam questions about these pages, but if you want to get a sort of, it's not so much different as it's a different way of describing the material, like philosophy, that's also described here in the lecture material. This is the lecture video for week 1, as well as the handout that goes along with it, that this video is talking over this handout. So you have both of those. You absolutely want to watch the video, read the handout. And you kind of want to do both of those things because the video doesn't go through every single thing that's said in these handouts. Yeah, but your quiz, exam questions and stuff, you always want to lean on these handouts. These are where, the lion's share of quiz and exam questions are coming out about those handouts. That's the source of them. There's also a link to the week 1 discussion, Branches of Philosophy, is here. And you can see the whole discussion right there, the topic. And then you have this section for those interested in reading, watching more. This is just voluntary, but after you've done this stuff inside here, you've watched all this, you've read all this, you've done the discussion, you may want to learn more. If so, here's other things that go into more detail about different branches and topics within philosophy by other people besides just me. Then you can go and we can see, well, what is week 2? How does it work? Well, it's basically the same as week 1. It's just a different topic. You have Greek mythos and the pre-Socratics. You got that's the topic. You got the week. You got the dates. Then if you scroll down, you'll see that there's a video and there's a handout lecture material right there at the top. Then there's another supporting video. There's actually 2 supporting videos. There's also another little handout that you can read through. There's a discussion. And then in week 2, starting week 2, you have a quiz. So there's also a quiz under the discussion. And then you have the voluntary material again. That you don't have to look through all this stuff, but if you're interested, you want to learn more, these are decent places to start to learn more. And then you can see that's the way it's going to go all the way through weeks 1 through 5. It's laid out. It looks like this. But what happens when we get to week 6 over here? So let's click week 6. And you'll notice you can even see it on the side navigation bar. Like when you did week 6, or I clicked on it, 2 sub things opened under it. These are the 2 topics for week 6. And they're laid out, and you can click on them each individually. Like you can click this, and see more about each one of them. But during week 6, you see you have some textbook stuff. There's no lecture video, but there is a lecture handout in this section, in this Rome, Christianity, and Problem of Evil. There's also some excerpts from St. Augustine. There's a discussion. There's a quiz. Notice it's quiz A. Well, that implies that there should be another one. Well, there is. So during this one, you have some textbook pages. You have an extra credit notification when it's coming up. But you also have a handout video for that week. Lecture material. You have other little supporting videos and documents. Then you also have the discussion, and you have a second quiz. So there's 2 discussions, there's 2 quizzes operating starting in week 6. Then there's extra credit, and you have voluntary stuff. And then that's the way the weeks appear throughout the rest of the semester. From week 6 going forward, it doubles up, like I said. Now, in terms of where to go from here, well, let's reset all this and let's go through this one more time about how do I find the lecture material and the things I need to do. So we can go back to the course homepage. And you've logged into the class, and now you're like, okay, I need to get started with week 1. Where do I go? What do I do? You just go to content. Look to the left side of the screen. It doesn't really matter what's on the right side at this point. And you find this tab over here on the left side that says Course Contents. Just click on it. And give D2L time. Then you want to do week 1. Just click on week 1. And then you're here again. You're right into what you need to be doing for this week with the lecture material and the handout. And you go through this stuff. And then when you've done that, you'll be able to do the discussion. And then you look through the voluntary stuff if you're interested in doing so. But that's how you get from where you log into the class and you first enter it to your weekly material. Everything to do with each week in terms of material is under these tabs under course content. And you can complete this discussion. Like, that's the thing to keep in mind. You don't have to go and do discussions through these, like discussions and quiz. No, I mean, you can read it and watch the videos, do all this stuff right here inside of content. Then when you're ready to do the discussion, just click the link, do it right there. And then when we get to later weeks, there'll be a quiz. Once you're ready, you can click the link. There'll be a link to quizzes in most of the other weeks. There's not one this first week. There's no quiz this week, just discussion and sending me an email doing the ID verification. But in future weeks, you can click the link to the quizzes and take them inside content. You don't have to jump out and go to assignments to do this stuff. Sometimes it's more straightforward and more clear to people just to do everything inside the weekly folders, because you have everything you need in one place if you go this route. So we go back to course home. This video is almost done. We're nearing the end of it. The last thing we need to do is look through this document, syllabus. What is this? Well, this is all the policies and other information about the class that it says to read the syllabus, the schedule, course information video, all that stuff. It's the class, the credit hours. It's summer full start, meaning 10 weeks for this class. And the thing to see is my name, my email address, office hours. The office hours, the school requires that office hours are posted. I picked Wednesdays at 1 to 4. But the reality is office hours are whenever you need them to be. When you have questions, whatever, just send me an email. I answer your question. If that's 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Tuesday, that's fine. If it's 3 in the morning on a Saturday, and you send the thing, and then I send an email with questions, and I happen to be awake and check email, and I reply to you, that was our office hours. Or if you send me an email, we need to talk through something on the phone, I determine it'd be more efficient just to talk through it with a phone conversation. I'll ask you for a phone number. You send it to me in times that work for you, and we'll set it up during the times that work for you. Essentially, office hours are whenever you need them to be. This is just what has to be there for administrative purposes. I won't necessarily be sitting at the computer at 1 to 4 every Wednesday unless somebody says they need me to be. If they need me to be there and need to talk on the phone or something during this time, I can absolutely be available at this time, and I will be. But the way to do it is just send me an email, and we always go from there. There's information about the textbook that's provided in the class. There's a course rationale, course description. You can read through that yourself. These prerequisites, you look through these. If none of those seem familiar to you, you don't know if you've done them or not, just get in touch with your academic advisor, whoever helped you sign up for classes, and they'll verify it. If they need to get in touch with me, they will. We'll work it out. Also, if this is your very first online class, the college sometimes requires that students do an orientation video and you do a quiz. I've done this before myself. It's very helpful if you've never done an online class. So if you're unsure whether you need to do this or not, once again, contact your academic advisor. They'll point you in the direction of how to do it, or if you need to at all. The additional requirements, the student code of conduct, rights and responsibilities. This applies to the entire college. It's worth reading through it. It's all the policies and procedures. The technical requirements. This is a 100% online class, so you do have to have a reliable computer to be able to access it and access the internet throughout the semester, and you need a functioning email. That's just, the bare requirements for a completely online class. This attention, I'm definitely here to enhance your educational experience. The course learning outcomes, what are these? That you put your work in, I put mine in, and you're able to do these things by the end of the semester and a lot more. These are just to get you started. There's many other things you'll be able to do after you've successfully gone through a class like this one. Philosophy classes provide you with a lot, as you'll see as we go through the semester. And there's a lot of skills that can be acquired and learned and transferred and used in so many other domains that have nothing to do with philosophy. So there's a lot of transferable skills coming out of a class like this. It's definitely worth your time. Grading system, the 9-10 point scale, pretty standard. How your grade's determined. The grade is calculated on final grade points, meaning that if you do your first discussion, you get 100 on it. Well, it's worth 2 final grade points. That means you'll have a 2. That's what will show up. It'll be a 2. You do the next week's discussion, you do it successfully, you're going to get another 2. So it's going to turn into a 4. And then you do a quiz, you get it accurate. Well, it's worth 2 grade points as well. So now you've done 2 successful discussions, 1 successful quiz, you'll have a 6. And it adds up that way throughout the semester. So when you get to the midpoint of the semester and you've done everything with 100%, maybe you look at your final grade and it says a 50. What's that? Well, that just means you've done all 50 points that were available up to that point in the semester. But it also means that if you did nothing else from that point in the semester, a 50 is what you would have. in the class. So you start out with 0 points, and these points are just added up as you complete them throughout the semester. That's the way it works. And then there's that 5 final grade points I mentioned about extra credit. The next thing, weekly discussion posts, we've already talked through this. This is just it written out, where you do initial post, you reply to at least 2 peers, and that's for every individual discussion. So if you have a week that has 2 discussions, you're going to do 2 initial posts and 4 peer replies total. And then here's the way to think about it with peer replies and discussions, that they need to be thoughtful, respectful, meaning that you include reasons for whatever your answers are, claims that are made. And in terms of peer replies, you're just trying to be helpful. Give people feedback you yourself would like to receive. More than a simple I agree or I disagree. You won't get credit for that in peer replies. You have to say more than that. And also, participate in weekly discussions. This is the fun part of the class. I mean, some people may say, well, none of this sounds fun to me. Well, that's fine. But you do get to interact with other people through discussions, and you get to see how other people's minds work and how they're thinking through the exact same thing. You can read it and get one impression of it, and then they can read it and get an entirely different perception of it. This happens in philosophy. and it may be that you start out with an initial post and you answer it one way and give your reasons, but then once you've read other people's posts, you may say, well, I don't think that answer anymore. I changed my mind. That's fine. That's not a problem. That's how we learn. We don't always think the very first thing, that we come up with. Sometimes that changes in time. Sometimes we go totally different than where we started. And that's the learning process, so that's fine. But I do read all the posts, all the replies, and I do interact, and I do reply to people, not everybody, but a few people each week. And whenever I reply to people, you want to check those out, because there's always going to be something in there that can be helpful to everybody. Inside discussions. Weekly quizzes. There's 4 questions per quiz. You have 20 minutes to do it. Those show up. Not this week. You don't have a quiz this week. You just have discussion and the other stuff. But after starting week 2, you have these quizzes that start. The midterm exam final, they're just larger quizzes. That's the way to think about it. Once you've done one quiz and you see that it has 4 questions, well, the midterm is just a bigger quiz. It has 38 questions that covers multiple weeks of material, whereas the weekly quizzes are just on the topic that they're associated with. And then the final exam, same thing. It's just a bigger quiz, and it covers the latter half of the semester. So there's not a cumulative final in this class. Like, what happens is we do things up to the midpoint. We do the midterm exam. Then after that, you can just focus on what comes after as far as the final exam goes. You don't have to retain everything from day 1 all the way to day 10. Now, these important things, they are important too. All the quizzes, all the exams are submitted through D2L. It's 100% online. You also don't want to attempt to take these things on a cell phone, because the cell phone, there's delays in the transmission of the signal. And moreover, D2L is not necessarily up to date with every single operating system, that every single new phone that's released, it seems like all the time, multiple times a year, that D2L can't be, the people who maintain it, they just can't keep up with all that. So the way you do it is, when you get ready to do a quiz, do an exam, get to a physical computer and just do it during the time period that it is. It's just easier. What the most common thing that happens is, if you try to do quizzes and exams on a cell phone, is that the D2L testing software can get confused and it won't let you advance to the next page. And then your time expires, and then you have to get in touch with me, and we try to reopen it, and I have to reset things. And it creates a delay and difficulty that you can avoid entirely, or most entirely. Sometimes internet connection delays can do this too. But the main thing is, cell phones do it frequently if you try to do quizzes and exams. So it's just best to avoid trying to do quizzes and exams on the phone. The next thing is the timers. The way the timers work is they're in the servers where D2L is stored. And what happens is when you agree to take a quiz, a timer starts and starts counting down. You have 20 minutes of quiz. So if you were to go in, start the quiz, do a question or two, then log out and say you've only used 10 minutes. And then you log out and you go off and do something else for 3 hours and then come back and log in. All that D2L is going to let you do is turn the quiz in where you left off. It's not going to let you add anything to it because the time limit will have expired. The timers continue to run even if you log out and all your time's not up. It doesn't save that time for you. That's not the way that works. And so you just want to set the time aside. You get ready to do final exam. You got an hour and a half, 90 minutes to do it. Just have that 90 minutes clear. If you use it all, fine. If you don't and you get done early, that's fine too. You just don't want to stop and start these things because the timers don't stop even if you log out. They still continue. And they'll expire. Now, the argumentative essay, this will make more sense after you participated in discussions. Really, what the essay is doing is getting you to expand upon one of your discussion answers and your reasoning. That's all it's doing, is you're just doing a larger discussion style post, but you're putting it in this standard argumentative essay format for philosophy. You have an introductory paragraph, you put a thesis statement, which is almost always just going to be whatever your claim was that you made when you answered the discussion question. And then you briefly state the reasons you're going to talk about to support your claim. And then you talk through each of the reasons in the body paragraph. Then the concluding paragraph, you just restate in past tense exactly what you said in the intro paragraph. You can do the intro and the concluding paragraph at the exact same time. That's a sort of trick or a hack that people that have done these things, like I have, this is what journal articles are in argumentative style disciplines like philosophy and literature and history, but also in science. There's a different format, but it is similar, where you make your claim and you provide your reasons. You tell people what you're going to do in the intro, you do it in the body, and then you tell people what you just did in the conclusion. And hopefully you did. This is a good catch. That if you just restate the conclusion in past tense, well, after you've just done this, you can catch yourself and say, well, whoa, I didn't do that. Let me go back and do that in the body. And it's just a way that people are able to keep their mind and their argumentation organized. And you can use this pattern in many other classes. That you can organize your thoughts this way going forth in life. It's a transferable skill. You only have to do it once. It's a short thing, 3 to 5 pages. And it's just expanding upon a discussion post. Once we get to it, if you have more questions, just send me an email. I'll be glad to talk with you more about it. But normally it makes sense once you get to it, what it's asking you to do. Extra credit, we've already talked about that. So what else do we have? Policies. Yeah. Discussion post, it says they can't be made up. But if you do miss a discussion, just send me an email. We'll go from there. As far as quizzes and exams go, you can make up missed quizzes if you have an acceptable documented reason. Same goes for the midterm exam. But the final exam, it's good to know this from day one. The final exam is turned in, and that day I have like 24 hours after that exam goes in to get everybody's grades tallied up, checked, verified, and turned in. And there's just not enough time after the day the finals due from when I have to turn in grades to the registrar. It's just the way things are set up. And, it's just the way of things. So it's just a physical time limit that there's not enough time really to make up a final if you miss it. But you always have multiple days, entire week to do a quiz, entire week to do midterm, entire week to do a final. So you have the time. It's just, but if you do happen to miss a quiz or the midterm or something, and you have a documented event, just let me know. We'll go from there. Disruptive, disrespectful behavior. The simple story with any of that is just don't do it. And there's examples of what, that would entail. There's a policy about it. We're all here to learn. We're not here to, discourage people from learning. So somebody may say something and you may think, well, that's the stupidest thing I've ever read. It could happen. It happens sometimes in life, and you may be right. That's the thing. But you don't have to describe it that way to someone. And it's kind of like if you can't think of anything nice to say, just don't say anything at all to that person. Find someone else to reply to. But if you do think there's an error in their thing, in a post, all you're doing is saying, well, you disagree. So tell them, yeah, I disagree. Here's why, and give them the reasons based on what their reasons, their examples, lack thereof, whatever it is. But you don't have to lead on insulting someone. It's like the line, you can say pretty much anything you want in life, it's how you say it. And so this is just a sort of idea of you just think a little bit before you say. Now, this is normally not even a problem. But if it is, there is procedures and policies. You can be removed from the whole class based on the severity of it. Similarly, academic misconduct, plagiarism, cheating, simple thing, you just don't do it. Plagiarism is that you take something that you didn't write, you didn't think it up, you put your name on it, and you turn it in as if it's yours. It's essentially a form of theft. That someone else made it, created it, and then you lay claim to, oh, this is mine, when you know it's not. That's the simple way to think about plagiarism. It happens. You can see it all the way up, and very high up people get caught doing this sometimes in society. But it's not a good thing. And that in college, you're always going to get a 0 for it if it's substantiated, and it goes on your permanent record. And depending on the severity, you can just not just remove from the class. This is removed from the whole school and not able to get into another school. So this is definitely, you want to avoid that stuff. This is a 100 level class. There's no assignment you encounter. It may seem difficult at times, but there's nothing that you can't do. Perfection is not the expectation in these level of classes. It's just that you're trying, use your thoughts, your words, your ideas, make your discussion posts, do the quizzes, you'll be fine. As long as you're reading the stuff and ask me any questions when you have them, and I'll help you if you're confused about something. In terms of attendance, technically you're attending 3 times. That just means you made an initial post, you made peer replies, you did your quiz, things like that. You're going to do that even if you do it during one login event. This doesn't mean you got to log into the class 3 times. It just means that you will do things at least 3 times during a week. That could all happen in one login event. You could ready to do discussion, go in, make your discussion post, and then be able to see other people's posts, read 2 of them, or read all of them. You'll want to, but just pick 2, reply. You've attended 3 times, but you only logged in once. So it's about the doing of things. It's not about how many times you log in a week. Now, in terms of how much do you have to be in the class, how many absences could you have and still be in the class, is you can miss up to 2 weeks of discussions, quizzes. But if you fall off the grid beyond those 2 weeks, this is not my policy, it's the school's policy, but I have to withdraw you from the class. So if you want to stay in the class, you just don't want to miss over 2 weeks worth of material, completing assignments, because remember, attendance is tracked off of those assignments being completed. And but now if something comes up and you know ahead of time something's coming up, just send me an email. We'll work through things. I'm not here to withdraw people. That's not what I want to do at all from the class, but it's the school's policy. And that goes along with doing this attendance verification this week, doing identity verification, those kind of things. I mean, those are just administrative things we have to do. It's not necessarily, what we may want to do, but it's what we do. It's what the college requires. Technical issues, if you have some problem, if you click on a link anywhere throughout the semester, you click on a link and you get a 404 error, like file not found, definitely send me an email, because I'm the only person that's going to fix that. So if you click on something, I build this class, there's a lot of different links in the class. It's possible that I make a mistake from time to time. I'm not beyond making mistakes. It happens sometimes. Or a link just fails, like an internet site no longer exists. if that happens, you get a 404 error, just send me an email. I'll fix it. I'm the only person that will. But now, if it's something like your computer's not working well with D2L or something, we'll probably have to get in touch with the tech services, the IT people. They're really good at the school. They can help. I mean, all that I've interacted with have been really great, and they get things solved and get it done. They're efficient. So technical issues are not really issues, as long as you just get in touch with me. Even if you are having trouble with something like that and you already are talking to tech services, if you're encountering some technical issue that's preventing you from turning things in, just send me an email. Let me know what's going on and I can work with you. Rather than you miss 2 weeks or 3 worth of material and then I have to withdraw you, but you were trying to get it fixed, so just keep me informed of what's going on and I'll work with you. The student resources, this is just more in, numbers, phone numbers and things. These are in like the student services. You can look through all that. But we have reached the end of this video. And I definitely look forward to interacting with everyone this semester with discussions and all. And until then.